Today we are going to show you how to make a Japanese-style oyster in half-shell appetizer. First we're going to wash the oysters under running water and scrubbing with a steel wool on the outside. Now after we wash the oysters, we're ready to open them. With the flat side facing up, if we were to draw a grid on this, we're aiming for an area right about here that we're looking to sever the meat connecting to the shell. We're going to start by cutting the shell a little bit on the side. And then with our oyster shucking tool, we're going to work it in between the shell's opening here. We're going to find the spot where the meat connects to the shell and sever it. Once it's severed, the oyster will naturally open. We're going to discard the top portion of the shell. And once again, just separate the meat from the shell here. So our oyster is free, and we'll move it to a bowl. And we're going to keep the bottom portion of the shell and boil them for serving shells. After we remove the meat from the oyster shells, we're going to save the concave side of the oyster shell, and these are going to be used as our serving shells that we're going to serve the oyster in. But before we use them as our serving shells, we're going to boil them for 5 minutes. This is going to kill any bacteria that's on them. After the shells have been in boiling water for 5 minutes, we're going to strain them. And let them cool down. Now after we strain the oyster shells from the boiling water, there's going to be a little bit of meat left over on the shell here. We're just going to remove that. After we've removed the oyster meat from the shells, we're going to rinse with water a few times until the water turns more clear. Now that we've rinsed them with water a few times and the water's a bit more clear, what we're going to do is add the daikon. And we're going to add the daikon that we've used our Japanese grater. So we're going to add water to it until it reaches about this level. The oysters are submerged. It's going to be easy for us to take the oysters one by one and use the daikon particles to lightly scrub the outside of each piece. And once we've done this, we can rinse this piece off. We'll move it to a bowl. Now we're going to show you how to make a popular garnish called momiji oroshi. We're going to take a small portion of daikon, when we want to drain the excess liquid from the daikon, it's preferable to use a strainer. We don't really want to squeeze it. After we've grated the daikon, we're going to add some ichimi, or Japanese chili powder. And here's our momiji oroshi, or grated daikon with chili peppers. Now we're going to show you how to decorate our namagaki appetizer, or fresh oysters in the half shell. First, we're going to start with some bamboo leaves on the plate, or sasanoha. After we place the sasanoha, we're going to put some ice on top. After we have a nice bed of ice cubes, we're going to place our oyster shells. And then after we've placed our oyster shells, we're going to put the oyster meat back in the shells. And after we've put the oyster meat in the shells, we're going to put some ponzu over them. After we sauce with ponzu, we're ready to garnish with a little bit of green onions and momiji oroshi, as well as lemon wedges. Once we have our green onions placed, we'll take our momiji oroshi. After we place our momiji oroshi, we're going to place some lemon wedges. And here we have our finished namagaki appetizer, or oysters in a half shell.